When we look to the example set before us, we find that greatness is not always where we expect it. We imagine that power is in position, through fame or wealth. But what if true greatness lies not in what we possess, but in what we give away? The greatest among us is not always the one who commands the most, but the one who humbly serves. For it is only in lowering ourselves that we are raised up, not just in the eyes of others, but in the measure of our very soul. Greatness is often measured by the heights we reach, the titles we hold, or the accomplishments we amass. Our world, in its quest for admiration, has a tendency to elevate those who stand at the top, believing that they are the ones who are truly remarkable. It is not about elevating oneself, but about humbling oneself for the sake of others. In this truth lies the key to understanding the power of humility in leadership. Humility is not a quality that comes easily in a society that champions individualism and achievement. Humility, in its purest form, does not fit these images. It is quiet, subtle, and often goes unnoticed by the world. But it is in the subtlety of humility that the truest form of leadership is revealed. Consider the great figures in history, those who have shaped the world not through their power, but through their willingness to serve. These are not the ones who seized power for themselves, but those who gave of themselves for the benefit of others. They did not demand respect, but earned it through their actions. Their strength was not in their dominance, but in their ability to lift others, to place others' needs above their own, to guide and to nurture, even at their own expense. In this, they showed the world that true leadership is not a position of privilege. Humility in leadership does not mean weakness or the absence of strength. On the contrary, it requires a depth of inner strength that is not easily seen. It takes strength to listen rather than to speak, to defer to others rather than to assert one's own views. It takes courage to lead from behind, allowing others to shine, even when the credit would have easily been one's own. Humility in leadership means not seeking accolades, but offering them freely to others. It means choosing to be a servant first, rather than a ruler. It is the ability to recognize that the humility of leadership also requires an understanding of one's limitations. It is all too easy for those in positions of power to become arrogant, to believe that their success is solely a result of their own abilities. But true humility recognizes that no one achieves greatness alone. It is in recognizing these forces that humility is born. The humble leader acknowledges their own dependence on others, and in doing so, they inspire those they lead to recognize their own interconnectedness. In this mutual recognition, humility fosters a bond of trust, respect, and shared purpose. Humility also opens the door to growth. The prideful leader is often closed off, unwilling to admit mistakes or acknowledge their flaws. They are too focused on maintaining their image and protecting their ego to truly learn and improve. Humility, however, allows for vulnerability. It acknowledges that no one is perfect and that growth is a lifelong process. The humble leader is open to feedback, willing to listen to others' perspectives, and eager to learn from their experiences. In doing so, they not only improve themselves, but create an environment where others feel safe to do the same. Humility creates a culture of continuous growth, where everyone is encouraged to reach their fullest potential. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of humility in leadership is its ability to foster unity. In a world divided by differences of opinion, culture, and background, humility has the power to bring people together. It dissolves barriers of pride and arrogance that separate us from one another and replaces them with empathy and understanding. When a leader is humble, they are able to see the worth in every individual, regardless of their status or position. They are able to recognize the strengths in others and encourage them to use their talents for the greater good. Humility in leadership creates a space where everyone is valued, where differences are celebrated, and where people work together toward a common goal. This does not mean that the humble leader is a doormat or someone who allows others to walk over them. On the contrary, humility requires firm convictions, a deep sense of purpose, and a willingness to stand up for what is right, even in the face of opposition. The humble leader is not afraid to challenge the status quo or to speak out against injustice. But they do so not out of a desire for power or control, but out of a genuine concern for the well-being of others. Their strength is in their ability to act with integrity, to do what is right, even when it is difficult or unpopular. It is an act of love, an acknowledgement that every person is valuable, and that no task is too small or insignificant when it is done for the good of others. True leadership is not about being served, but about serving others in every capacity, whether through direct action or by empowering others to do the same. In recognizing the power of humility, we come to understand that true greatness is not found in the accumulation of wealth, fame, or power, but in the ability to lift others up, to serve with integrity, and to lead by example. And in doing so, they become a beacon of light, guiding others not by force or coercion, but by the quiet strength of their example. Humility in leadership does not diminish one's ability to lead. It enhances it. It does not make one weak. It makes one strong in ways that are not immediately apparent to the world. The humble leader understands that their true power lies not in their ability to dominate or control, but in their ability to serve, to listen, and to guide with compassion and wisdom. And in this they become a leader worth following, not because they demand it, but because they have earned the respect and trust of those they lead. The concept of sacrifice is often misunderstood in the modern world. It is frequently seen as a burden, a loss, or a form of deprivation. Yet true sacrifice is not about giving something up. In its most profound form, sacrifice is not a form of self-diminishment. Sacrifice requires the willingness to put others before oneself, to act in a way that may not immediately benefit us, but will benefit the greater good. It is the act of giving when we have little left to give, of extending a hand when we ourselves are in need. It asks us to go beyond the comfort of our own desires and to embrace the discomfort of helping others, even when it requires personal cost. Yet, this is where the beauty of sacrifice lies, not in the loss itself, but in the transformative power it has on both the giver and the receiver. The power of sacrifice is rooted in love. When we truly love someone or something, we are willing to give of ourselves without hesitation. The one who sacrifices does not lose, they gain something far greater, the satisfaction of knowing that their actions have made a meaningful difference in the lives of others. This principle holds true in every sphere of life, from family relationships to the broader community. Parents sacrifice for their children not because they are compelled to, but because their love for them creates a desire to provide, to protect, and to nurture. In this act of sacrifice, parents do not diminish themselves. They elevate the lives of their children, shaping them into individuals who will go on to make their own contributions to the world. The sacrifice is a legacy not just for those who benefit from it directly. In leadership, sacrifice takes on a particularly powerful role. A leader who sacrifices for the good of those they lead does not do so to earn favor or gain admiration. They do it because they recognize that leadership is not about personal accolades, but about serving others. A leader who sacrifices their time, energy, or resources for the sake of their followers sends a clear message. They value the well-being of others more than their own comfort. This act of service creates a deep sense of trust and loyalty among those they lead. Sacrifice is also deeply tied to personal growth. In the act of giving, we discover strengths we never knew we had. Sacrifice requires us to step outside our own comfort zones, to confront our own fears and insecurities. It stretches us beyond our limitations and helps us grow into the people we were meant to be. Through sacrifice, we come to understand that true strength is not found in what we can accumulate for ourselves, but in what we are willing to give away for the benefit of others. The beauty of sacrifice is also seen in the ripple effect it creates. When one person sacrifices, it inspires others to do the same. This chain reaction creates a culture of giving, where individuals continuously support one another, lifting each other up and creating a stronger, more compassionate community. It builds bonds of solidarity, creating a sense of shared responsibility and mutual care that transcends individual concern. Ultimately, sacrifice is not a one-time act. It is a way of living. It is a commitment to prioritize the well-being of others, to embrace the discomfort that comes with true generosity, and to trust that in giving, we receive something far more valuable than what we have given away. The sacrifice made for the greater good enriches not only those who benefit from it, but also the one who sacrifices. Through it, we discover the profound truth that our lives are not defined by what we keep for ourselves, but by what we are willing to offer to others, even at a cost. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful and transformative actions that a person can undertake. It has the potential to heal not just relationships, but also the individual who chooses to forgive. In a world that often seems dominated by the principles of retribution and justice, forgiveness stands as an act of radical grace, a defiance of the cycle of hurt and resentment that binds so many. To forgive is to release oneself from the chains of anger and bitterness, to step into a new realm of freedom and peace. It is not merely a gift given to others, but one that heals and restores the forgiver as well. At its core, forgiveness is an act of letting go. It is the conscious decision to release the grip that past wrongs have on the heart and mind. This release is not about forgetting the offense or minimizing the harm caused, but about choosing to no longer let that offense define one's present or future. When we hold on to anger, resentment, or a desire for vengeance, we give that event power over us. We allow it to dictate how we feel, how we react, and how we see the world. Forgiveness, then, is an act of reclaiming control. It is about reclaiming one's own heart, one's own peace, and one's own sense of justice. It says, "I will no longer allow this to consume me." In this sense, forgiveness is a profoundly liberating act. Forgiveness is not easy. It requires vulnerability, humility, and strength. It often feels unnatural, especially when the hurt is deep or the betrayal severe. In those moments, it may seem like the only way to deal with the pain is to hold on to it, to keep the anger close as a shield against further harm. But this approach only deepens the wound. It makes the pain more entrenched. Holding on to anger may feel protective in the moment, but in the long term, it only serves to perpetuate the cycle of suffering. It makes us prisoners of our own emotions, tied to the past by a chain of bitterness and regret. Forgiveness, however, is not about excusing the offense or pretending that it didn't matter. It is about recognizing the humanity of the other person and acknowledging that everyone, ourselves included, is capable of error. It opens up the possibility for reconciliation and healing, not by ignoring the past, but by choosing to transcend it. The act of forgiveness does not condone the offense. Rather, it frees both parties from the grip of the event. The one who has wronged us is not let off the hook, but we, in choosing to forgive, refuse to let that wrong define our interactions or our emotional state. In forgiving, we decide that the relationship, whether with the person who wronged us or with ourselves, is more important than the hurt that has been inflicted. We make the decision that healing and peace are more valuable than holding on to the past. Forgiveness is also an act of compassion. It requires us to extend empathy to another, to see them as flawed human beings, just as we are. It asks us to look beyond their actions and to understand the circumstances, motivations, or struggles that may have contributed to their behavior. In this way, forgiveness creates an opportunity for growth, both for the forgiver and the forgiven. It encourages understanding rather than judgment, connection rather than division. It asks us to ask not, "What did they do to me?" but Why did they do it? And how can I release them from my anger, not for their sake alone, but for my own? One of the most profound aspects of forgiveness is its power to break the cycle of hurt. Often, when we are wrong, we feel justified in holding on to our anger. We may feel that our hurt demands a response, that to forgive is to let the other person off the hook. But the reality is that by not forgiving, we keep the cycle of harm going. When we choose not to forgive, we allow that person's actions to continue affecting our lives in negative ways. Our bitterness, our resentment, and our anger affect our relationships, our mental health, and our peace of mind. The person who wronged us may have already moved on, but we remain trapped in a past event, held hostage by our emotions. Forgiveness, then, is not just for the person who has wronged us. It is for ourselves. It is the key to breaking free from the emotional and psychological chains that bind us to our past pain. It is a conscious decision to stop allowing that pain to control us. By forgiving, we free ourselves from the grip of that person's actions and create the space for healing to begin. We take the power back from the event and reclaim our emotional and mental well-being. This power of forgiveness extends to ourselves as well. We often find it harder to forgive ourselves than to forgive others. We can be our own harshest critics, holding on to our own mistakes and failings as though they define us. But just as we are called to forgive others, we must also forgive ourselves. Self-forgiveness is an act of self-compassion, recognizing that we too are imperfect and in need of grace. It is not about excusing our mistakes, but about accepting that we can learn from them and move forward. Self-forgiveness is the acknowledgement that we are not defined by our errors, but by our willingness to grow, to change, and to become better versions of ourselves. In relationships, forgiveness is essential. It is the glue that holds people together through difficult times. Without it, relationships break down, trust is shattered, and bitterness takes root. But when forgiveness is extended, it allows for healing, rebuilding, and the restoration of trust. Forgiveness creates the space for vulnerability, for the acknowledgement of mistakes, and for the potential for deeper connection. It is through forgiveness that relationships can evolve, grow, and flourish. It is the means by which love can endure, even in the face of betrayal or hurt. True forgiveness requires us to release the past, to let go of the pain and the anger that weigh us down. It asks us to choose peace, not for the benefit of the person who wronged us, but for ourselves. It is an act of self-care, of emotional freedom, and of spiritual strength. In forgiving others and ourselves, we set ourselves free from the grip of the past and allow ourselves to move forward with grace, peace, and hope. Living with purpose is one of the most powerful guiding principles a person can adopt. It is the compass that directs our actions, provides clarity in moments of uncertainty, and grounds us when we are faced with life's distractions and temptations. To live with purpose is to live intentionally, to choose to direct our energy and attention towards something meaningful, something that transcends mere survival or accumulation of success. It is to acknowledge that our time here is limited and precious, and that every moment counts toward creating a life that reflects our deepest values and beliefs. Purpose is not something that can be easily defined by external standards. It is a deeply personal concept, shaped by our unique experiences, gifts, and desires. For one person, purpose may be rooted in raising a family and nurturing the next generation. For another, it may lie in serving others, in contributing to the greater good, or in creating something that will outlast them. The key, however, is that purpose is always connected to something larger than ourselves. It is not about what we can gain or achieve, but about what we can give and contribute to the world around us. To live with purpose requires a commitment to understanding what matters most to us. It requires introspection, honesty, and the willingness to ask ourselves the difficult questions. What do I want my life to mean? What do I want to be remembered for? What drives me, excites me, and fuels my passion? In a world that constantly pulls us in different directions, through media, societal expectations, and the demands of modern life, living with purpose requires us to be still, to reflect, and to focus. It is far too easy to be swept away by the current of life, to let the busyness of each day dictate our actions without considering whether they align with our deeper values. Living with purpose also requires us to be disciplined. It is one thing to know what we are called to do, but it is another thing entirely to take consistent, deliberate action toward that end. It is about saying no to distractions, about being intentional with our time, and about pursuing what is truly worthwhile, even when it requires hard work. Purpose also offers us a deep sense of fulfillment. When we align our actions with our values, when we pursue that which truly matters, we experience a satisfaction that cannot be found in fleeting achievements or superficial success. Purpose gives our lives meaning, and meaning gives us a reason to wake up each morning with a sense of anticipation and excitement. It allows us to look back on our lives with pride, knowing that we have spent our time wisely, that we have used our talents and resources in ways that reflect who we are at our core. In a world that often equates success with wealth or fame, purpose offers a different kind of measure, one that is not external, but internal, rooted in the very essence of who we are. Furthermore, living with purpose provides resilience in the face of adversity. Life is not always easy, and there will be times when we face challenges, setbacks, and even failure. But when we live with purpose, we are better equipped to handle these obstacles. Purpose gives us the strength to persevere, to keep going when the road gets tough, because we know that our actions are part of a greater plan. When we know that what we are doing is meaningful, even when things are difficult, we can push through with determination and hope. Purpose transforms obstacles from mere hindrances into opportunities for growth, teaching us that every struggle is a chance to become stronger and more focused on what truly matters. Living with purpose also impacts those around us. When we live with intention, we inspire others to do the same. Our actions become a reflection of the values we hold dear, and in doing so, we encourage others to live authentically and with purpose. In this way, our purpose does not only benefit us, it becomes a gift to the people around us, creating a ripple effect that spreads outward. Purpose also helps to ground us in the face of uncertainty. In a world where so much feels uncertain, where change is constant and unpredictable, purpose offers stability. It provides a steady foundation on which we can build our lives, a reference point that guides us through the challenges and changes that inevitably come. When we know what our purpose is, we have a sense of direction. We know where we are headed, and even if the path ahead is unclear, we trust that we are moving towards something meaningful. Living with purpose is not about perfection or constant achievement. It is about direction, about living in a way that is authentic and true to our deepest selves. It is about making choices that reflect what we value most and taking steps, however small, toward those things every day. Purpose allows us to navigate the complexity of life with clarity and conviction, and in doing so, it leads us to a life that is rich with meaning, fulfillment, and satisfaction. It is the bedrock on which everything else is built, the one thing that remains constant in a world that is ever changing.